different altitudes for the altitude stratification, so they would be flying aircraft on top of other aircraft for some of the different scenarios out here. One of the things they were trying to demonstrate too was what they're calling extended line of sight missions, working towards beyond visual line of sight missions. It was kind of hard to get truly beyond visual line of sight out there when you're only like 1.5 miles away, okay? But they were treating the missions as if they were beyond visual line of sight, okay? They exercised a bunch of the flight services out there as well. One of the things that they did with this was they had one of the scenarios, they had 4 different scenarios that they worked. They also had a scenario where they would have a crisis management situation that would occur, and it would require all the aircraft to land immediately, return to station or land immediately when that happened. They had some sort of high priority mission that would fly through there and require them to do that. Okay? If you want to take a look, here are all the test objectives that NASA had for this thing. Just running through the operations real quick. They wanted to show that they could handle at least 4 simultaneous operations. They were actually able to handle 5 for most of those things. They can manage 2 simultaneous, stimulated beyond visual line of sight operations, and then they can safely manage that stratification of the airspace, which they did as well. Okay? And here's a picture of the airspace. They were flying north of Reno Stead out here. This area, again, was only about 1.5 miles from corner to corner. They had 5 different ground station locations that they were flying from, and they had flight observers out here, and they had folks who were doing the flight safety sorts of things, and then they had folks out there helping out with the network management as well. And we flew from a number of these things during the time period we were out there. So what they were showing for this one was the ability to reserve airspace in 3D blocks. So not just geographically, but with altitude stratifications and everything as well, so that you could reserve a volume of airspace so that if somebody tried to reserve the same volume that you did, then it would not allow that to happen through the system. And again, it would track where you were using the GPS on board the aircraft and the links that were provided back to the NASA software. But in this one, what they did is they also levied the requirement to integrate ADS-B on this. And they were flying the 978 megahertz ADS-B out here, so everybody had to have that on the aircraft. It turned out later that a couple of teams and everything had problems with some of the ADS-B, so it didn't transmit in every case, but it had to be a part of the configuration for the aircraft to fly out there. And then again, they had 3 sets of periods where they flew. They had 5 different agencies flying 2 days in each of the 3 sets, and they went through a whole different, a bunch of different missions out there to demonstrate the feasibility of this. And they did demonstrate, the all-land capability. They demonstrated a retasking capability for one of the aircraft, in response to a crisis management event that was unfolding while they were flying. And then they also had a scenario out there where one of the aircraft turned rogue and then violated airspace, of one of the aircraft and everything, and they would have to have that aircraft land. So, very successful, and then they had a media day for that on 19th of October. And how did we participate? Well, we were there, obviously, and all the teams that went out there, they had 2 shakedown tests prior to flying. They had a shakedown test in August, and they had a shakedown test in October. And then they had the TCL2 itself that ran from the 19th through the 22nd. So we had to go down the first week of October. The team did. We had, Nick and Karen and the folks who went down there and flew that. And they shipped everything out. They flew the missions in advance, put the stuff in storage. Then they went back down another week later, pulled it out, dusted it off, and flew in this thing. And we participated in that. We supported all, NASA did have 5 different services working groups to support this thing. Flight planning, flight path monitoring, separation assurances, public safety, and public portal. They've since combined a couple of those. But we played in each of those things. And then also we had to work with ADS-B and some long-range communications and everything to help us not only with the TCL2, but some beyond visual line of sight operations that we're doing at the university as well. Okay? Now, what's the future hold? Well, they've already got dates or tentative dates when they're going to do TCL3 and TCL4 out here, and these things are just TBD. We're going to find out a little bit more about what NASA is going to be shortly. But they're moving into, more of a congested airspace,